Welcome everyone to the 111th episode of the Ask Dr. Khan Show. I'm Dr. Peter Khan, board certified in functional neurology and functional medicine. And on the show, I give you information that's going to help you get well and stay well and help you solve your health puzzles. And for the past 110 weeks, I've been putting out content every week so that I can help you, give you information that you can't find anywhere else online, and make it simple for you to understand so it's actionable. And also let you know that we're here to help you if you need any help. People usually come to us because they've been everywhere, done everything else, tried everything, both in the natural conventional model and in the natural alternative model, and still not feeling better until they come to see us. Not telling you to brag, telling you that so that you can have hope. There's something you can do. So by learning and expanding your horizon, you're going to be able to have more options, which ultimately will help you. And that's my goal, okay? So for the past several weeks, I've been talking about brain, your most precious organ. We covered a lot, actually, in the past few weeks. We covered how your brain is crucial for you to experience your life. For you to experience life, you need to have a properly functioning brain so you can perceive the world through the five senses: touch, smell, sight, auditory, and taste. So this has to work properly so that your brain actually gets this sensory information so that you can act on it. For example, it's get too cold, sensory, right? You feel cold, then you put a coat on so you don't freeze to death, right? So the sensory information drives motor output. What you experience drives what you're gonna do, right? If you see something or you perceive something painful, you're going to go away from the painful stimuli. If you perceive something pleasurable, like eating food, you're going to go toward food. This is all built in for basic survival. But without input, there's no output. Your brain is basically a big antenna that picks up environmental stimulus and makes you do something, and hopefully you make the right decision and you do something that's in your best interest for your health and prolong your life and propagate future offspring. That's life in a nutshell, right? Biology in a nutshell. Now, in order for your brain to stay healthy, we talked about your brain requires two things: fuel and activation. I'm going to hit this every time we talk about brain series, the series on brain health, because this is so important. This is neurology 101, the basic requirement of every neuron, brain cells, spinal cord, peripheral nerve, every nerve cell in your body requires fuel and activation. Fuel comes in the form of oxygen and glucose. And oxygen is going to come from, breathing, obviously. But the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is that you also got to absorb food. You got to have proper digestion to get oxygen. How's that? Well, you have to be able to break down food to extract minerals such as iron, right? You get iron from your food, and that iron is one of the main constituent of your red blood cell. You have hemoglobin that use iron to help you to bind to oxygen. So you need proper digestion for you to absorb iron so that you can have proper oxygen saturation. This is where anemia might come in. If you're anemic, because you're not absorbing the iron from your food, that can cause oxygen deprivation as well. Or you shallow breathe, you don't breathe properly, you have other lung disease, then you're going to be compromised with brain function. The other side is glucose. This comes from the food that you eat. Remember, I talked about high blood sugar and low blood sugar are both bad for the brain, because at the end of it, both high and low blood sugar means you have less sugar delivered to your cells, to your brain cells especially. So we've got to keep the blood sugar level steady, meaning you must eat properly. It's not like, well, I have high blood sugar, so I'm taking metformin. That's going to help, right? Well, it'll lower the number, but you're not fixing the real problem. You eat donut every day and try to use metformin to counteract that. I mean, that's just lame, right? You got to fix the lifestyle by not eating the donut so you don't even need the metformin in the first place. Many people have this wrong mindset that, hey, I'll just do whatever the heck I want and there's a drug to rescue me. That's not how it works. Drugs are there to treat a symptom. You must make the proper lifestyle choice. I don't think anyone can argue with that. So this comes from proper eating. And activation comes from, number one, using your brain. What that means is do something novel, learn a new language, learn a new hobby, do something you enjoy, create something. If you have a job that's really repetitive, you come home, you just watch TV, you're not challenging yourself by reading a book, learning new concepts. Your brain doesn't like that. It likes to be stimulated by thought, new thoughts, but also, most importantly, the brain must be activated through movement. Movement is the other fuel for your brain. By movement, your brain is constantly being stimulated because proprioception and joint mechanoreceptor input to your brain is the most powerful thing driving the brain. That's why we're made to move, right? We have joints. What are the purpose of joints? To move. We're made to move. Modern lifestyle is very sedentary, and that's not good for the brain. So we must activate the brain, we must feed the brain properly. And the other side of that is we must make sure that we have no inflammation. We must cut out inflammation because inflammation is bad for the brain. And inflammation can come from improper diet, blood sugar issues, toxins, heavy metal toxicity, different type of environmental toxins. These are all things that we help our clients to identify through advanced lab testing, and then we use very targeted detoxification to help people get rid of these toxins that are driving the inflammation that can end up causing brain problem. In the last few weeks, past 2 weeks, we talked about different parts of the brain. We have covered so far frontal lobe. Let's draw the brain here. Here's a picture of the brain. We have frontal, occipital, parietal, and temporal. So we have talked about frontal lobe, which is in the front part of the brain. This is the executive function of the brain. This is where you have cognition in motion. Again, this is all a review of previous episodes. And if you missed those previous episodes, you can scroll into our old videos, old episodes on our timeline and watch the previous episode. This will be episode 109, where we talked about frontal lobe. And then last episode, we talked about this area, which is called the parietal lobe. This is where we got sensual, because the parietal lobe is the sensory cortex, which means that all sensory information, touch, sight, smell, well, sight actually goes into the occipital lobe, vision goes to the occipital lobe, but the vision has input into the parietal lobe. So ultimately, all sensory information ends up in the parietal lobe, where it integrates that information so your brain can make a decision on what you want to do with that. So this is the sensory part of the brain, and the frontal lobe is the motor part of the brain, as well as controlling emotion and cognition. Problem in frontal lobe can cause brain fog, inability to concentrate. You can have trouble with socially inappropriate behavior. That's why kids with ADHD, they blurt out things, they can't control their impulses. That's going to be frontal. Or depression is frontal. Anxiety could be frontal, but could be other parts of the brain. We'll get to that as we cover more parts of the brain. Your parietal lobe issue can cause hypersensitivity to pain, where you feel like you have fibromyalgia. You get touched very lightly and it just hurts. Where normally light touch doesn't hurt, now you're too sensitive to touch and it hurts. So some people have pain that's brain-based, not because they have some problem with their muscle. Parietal lobe issue can also cause you to have a visual processing issue, where you bump into things because you're not aware of your space. So you bump into things, or you always park crooked. Or it can even cause a problem with simple math calculations. It'll cause problem with not able to interpret symbols and signs, because parietal lobe basically take that visual information and say, hey, I see this shape, what does that mean? So that can lead to those issues. Again, we talked about that in the last episode, 110th episode, where we talked about parietal lobe symptoms. So we cover those 2 here. So today, we're going to talk about the temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is a very important area, because the temporal lobe, which means it's in the temple area of your brain, by the temporal lobe, this lobe of the brain does a variety of different things. Okay? One thing it controls is memory, especially short term. Okay? So what happens is, when you have problem with temporal lobe dysfunction, you're going to experience short-term memory loss. In fact, temporal lobe is the part of the brain that degenerates first when people have Alzheimer, which is a type of dementia. There are many different types of dementia, so this is a common question that I get. Dr. Kang, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer? So here we have dementia. And dementia simply means that you have lost certain brain function, cognitive issues. You're not able to move as well, you're not able to think as well, you're forgetting things, any type of cognitive loss, degeneration, or neurodegeneration. Under the umbrella of dementia, we have Alzheimer's disease. We have Parkinson's disease. We may have vascular dementia, which is caused by mini strokes over time, causing you to lose brain cells, and now you're getting dementia. We have medication-induced dementia. Med-induced, because medications do that. There are many medications that are toxic to the brain, or neurotoxic. And then we may have supranuclear palsy. Again, there are many different types. So Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. Parkinson's disease is a type of dementia. Okay? Dementia just means you're losing function in your brain, and Alzheimer's disease specifically memory loss. Parkinson's disease specifically motor loss. Okay? So that's what that means. Now the temporal lobe is very much involved in Alzheimer's disease. In fact, it's the first area in your brain to degenerate when you have Alzheimer's disease. It starts here in the temporal lobe. In fact, in the hippocampus region, there's an area deep in here called hippocampus. Now you may say, what's with the hippo? Because the area looks kind of like a seahorse. Hippocampus, it means like a seahorse. So the area, that region looks like a seahorse, kind of a little long and a little crooked. So the hippocampus region of the temporal lobe is where that short-term memory specifically is stored, and that's also the first area in the temporal lobe where Alzheimer happens. Okay, this is so important. Why is this important? Because Alzheimer's disease is epidemic, folks. Alzheimer's disease affects 5.7 million Americans in 2018. That's 2018 stats. 5.7 million Americans. And it's the 6th leading cause of death in seniors. And estimates that by 2050, by the year 2050, the number of people with Alzheimer's disease will increase from 5.7 million people to 14 million people. That's almost a tripling of people with Alzheimer's disease. Yet, people who are entering that age, supposedly old age, is not tripling by 2050, but the disease is tripling by 2050. So what does that tell you? It tells you that it's not an old people disease. They say Alzheimer's disease because you're just getting old. Your brain just gets old and you forget things. That's not true, folks. Don't listen to the lie. Alzheimer's disease is not an old people disease. It's a disease, it's a type of dementia. It means that you're degenerating, your brain is degenerating. You're losing brain cells, and you're losing brain cells at a faster rate than your brain can build neuroplasticity to compensate for that loss of neuron. Because you lose brain cells, and you don't get them back. However, your brain has an amazing ability to reach out and make new synapses with other brain cells around the area of the brain that may be damaged. So for example, if you have a stroke in this part of the brain, guess what? Your brain cells has ability to go from here and make another connection around this dead area and make another connection. That's called neuroplasticity. Your brain is malleable. Back 20, 30 years ago, scientists, as early as 20, 30 years ago, scientists used to think that your brain, once it becomes an adult, it cannot change, you cannot do anything about it, you got what you got. New science in the past 20 years, emerging science, showing that without a shadow of a doubt, your brain can be rewired. That's called neuroplasticity. And this is how someone that had a stroke can regain some of that function back, even all of the function back, by rehabbing, doing neural rehab so that your brain can actually make a new connection with a neuron, bypassing the one that's injured or not working properly. So you can change it. The only reason why people develop Alzheimer's is because the rate of degeneration is faster than the rate of plasticity, faster than your neuron's ability to make another connection. So then you start losing function, you can't remember things, you get lost in parking lots, you can't remember your family and friends' name or even faces. That's Alzheimer's, but that's because the speed of loss is too great. But guess what? There's something you can do with that speed of loss. You can slow down that speed, the rate of loss. You can also increase plasticity so that your body can make new neurons, and you can delay that process or even avoid it altogether if you take care of yourself, folks. This is so important. That's why I'm talking about this. You need to not accept the lie that, oh, I'm just getting old, so it's normal to forget things. It's not true. I mean, Warren Buffett is like 80-something. He's still doing really well, very clear, running, multi-billion-dollar portfolios. There's other people who are in their ripe old age and productive and cognizant and cogent. So it doesn't mean when you're old, you're automatically going to have memory loss. That's a lie, folks. You can maintain it. You must do something about it, though. You can't just sit there and eat donuts and not exercise and expect to not have Alzheimer's disease. Do something today, not when you already have memory loss. By then, it's too late. We're seeing early Alzheimer's now, where people in their 40s are getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I see it in my office all the time. People in their 30s having signs of early dementia that we're able to reverse because people have identified the root cause, right? We got rid of inflammation, toxicity, heavy metal toxin. We detox out of their system. We make the proper lifestyle change. We activate the brain. We feed the brain well. Things change. I literally just finished with a consult with a client. She's in the late 60s. When she came to us, she was fatigued. She had pain. Her brain wasn't functioning right. She had multiple infections in her body. Her gut wasn't working right, where she's constantly having loose stool diarrhea. And I asked her today, she actually just came back from a trip from Russia, going on a river cruise in Russia, okay? Something that she always wanted to do. She wasn't able to. I asked her, did you think that you could do that trip before you came to see me? You know what she said? What that surprised me? She said, I didn't think I was going to be alive before I came to see you. I was like, wow. I thought I was pretty impressed with hey, I got you well enough so you can actually enjoy your life and take a trip to Russia now. She said she wouldn't be alive without doing our program. That's just how important it is. But now she's able to get her quality of life back, enjoy life, have the energy to do things. Now she's actually having hope. She's looking forward to the next trip. That's amazing. That's why I do what I do. Okay? But not without actually identifying the root cause of her condition. And we consult with clients all over the country, all over the world, through Skype and video consultation. So if you need help, don't feel like, oh, I'm not in Arizona, I can't fly to you. Just talk to us. Just give us a call, 480-988-6269, or email us at info@askdrkhan.com, or private message us on Facebook and ask to schedule a case review. We'll point you in the right direction. We want to help you. We want to build that relationship because it's through that lives gets changed. And that's what it's all about. And you can do it with the right help, okay? So Alzheimer's disease is going to triple by 2050, and it costs the United States $277 billion with a B to just manage Alzheimer's disease and dementia. To manage it, meaning not making it better, just to treat people with this disease after you already have it. Let me tell you, folks, it'll be much less expensive if we don't even develop this problem in the first place. Again, if you say, well, when you get old, you're going to have it. That's a lie. Stop believing the lie. You can stop it. You got to start now. Proper exercise, proper diet, right? Getting rid of toxicity. That's how you do it, okay? And so let's talk about temporal lobe. Besides memory, what else does it do? It also controls circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is your day-night sleep-wake cycle. The hippocampus region of the temporal lobe controls the circadian rhythm. Now, the circadian rhythm is controlled by two different hormones in addition to the brain, because the hormones influence the brain to control this rhythm. The two hormones that's involved here is cortisol and melatonin. These two hormones have opposing actions. Cortisol should be high in the morning and low at night, while melatonin should be low in the morning and high at night. So that when melatonin is high at night, cortisol is low, you go to sleep like a baby. You go into deep restorative sleep. Okay? And in the morning, your cortisol go up, melatonin go low, so you, boom, jump out of bed full of energy. If that's not what you experience, you're experiencing difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, you wake up every hour and a half to 2 hours, and it's difficult for you to fall back to sleep, and you wake up in the morning, feel like you never got into deep sleep, so you're tired, you never got the day started off right. This is a sleep-wake cycle problem with circadian rhythm. And many people will take melatonin to try to fix that. Now the problem is, you can have this problem because you have too much cortisol. The cortisol is all jacked up. Melatonin does have some antagonistic action against cortisol, where it tends to lower the cortisol a little bit because they're antagonistic, but not enough if your cortisol is just so high, sky high. Why? Because of inflammation. If you're inflamed, your body's going to jack up that cortisol, and you're not going to be able to go to sleep. Just so happens that the cortisol is toxic to the hippocampus. It destroys hippocampal tissue in your brain. So when you're constantly inflamed and stressed, you pump out so much cortisol that you destroy that part of the brain that regulates sleep-wake cycle. So now you can't sleep, and the more you don't sleep, the more you destroy your brain. Furthermore, when you destroy the hippocampus part of the temporal lobe, you start to develop dementia, Alzheimer, you get memory loss, you can't focus, you can't concentrate. Big problem. So we've got to, the way you address this is not by taking a bunch of melatonin, but to actually find out what's the cause of the cortisol. It's not enough just to take a supplement. There's no supplement specifically to lower cortisol. There is just what can we help to identify the root cause of that high cortisol release. It's all about root cause, folks. And so many people are taking the supplement without understanding why they're taking something. You must address the root cause. Okay? So that's what the temporal lobe does. The temporal lobe also has a lot to do with spatial memory, or we should call it visual spatial memory, which means that it has to do with you recognizing landmarks. So this is where you get lost in a parking lot. You can't get anywhere without GPS. Where you used to be able to, now you can't. It's one thing if you're just never able to, because you're just not born with directional sense. You know, you were absent on the day that they passed out directional sense in elementary school, so you just don't have that sense even since you're a kid. Some people are just like that. But other people, they used to be able to tell direction, but now it's getting worse. That means that the temporal lobe is not functioning as well. That's a main concern. That's one of the hallmark symptoms of people with Alzheimer's disease. They get lost easily. And you can get this even in the 40s and the 30s. That's early dementia. If you're having symptoms in an earlier age, in the third or fourth decade of life, what's going to happen if you get to the fifth and the sixth decade? It's not good. We need to stop that progression. You start now by working with a qualified functional neurologist and functional medicine doc. Okay? Another thing is that it does verbal memory. So there's an area in the brain called the Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area in the temporal lobe help you process language. Okay? So problem that can cause verbal memory issue where you get word loss. You're like, the words just don't come to you. That could be a temporal lobe issue as well. Temporal lobe is also the auditory cortex. So hearing actually goes to the temporal lobe. So problem with temporal lobe dysfunction can actually cause hearing problems where you hear the sound because the hearing is working. It's just you can't comprehend what you just heard. So like in a noisy or loud environment, you hear a bunch of sound and people are talking to you. It's like, what is that again? You heard it, but you don't understand what you heard. So that could be an auditory issue. The temporal deal with, like I said, short-term memory. So this is where you're becoming forgetful. You put the keys down. You're like, what did I put that again? You walk into a room. You forget why you walk in there in the first place. You get introduced to somebody. 5 seconds later, hi, my name is, Rob. It's like 5 seconds later, what's that guy's name? They just told you, right? So that's short-term memory issue. That has to do with temporal lobe. Now, so what do you do with temporal lobe? Well, number one, remember, fuel, activation, inflammation. That stuff we always got to work on. That's the foundation pieces. In addition to other things that we can do to help with temporal lobe, it may be to use certain nutritional compound that we can use to dampen cortisol. Again, if you dampen cortisol without addressing the root cause, you're kind of just playing that game. But there are certain things that we can do temporarily to help with that. One of the things that we use is phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine is a nutrient that the brain uses to actually modulate itself, to regulate itself. It helps with the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. It can have the effect of lowering cortisol and improve memory. There's tons of research on that shows that it helps. But again, if you're inflamed to the hilt, doesn't matter how much phosphatidylserine you take, it may have very limited ability to help. That's why we don't use it that much. In some people we do, but mostly we're working on the foundational issues. Now, some of the things you can do to, as far as exercise-wise, that can help with temporal lobe function is you can use auditory info, because the temporal lobe, remember, is auditory. So to exercise the brain, you basically do what that part of the brain does. So if it does hearing, then you can listen to music. You can listen to music to one side of the ear to stimulate the other side of the brain. Now, know that hearing information is not unilateral so much so compared to motor, where the right brain controls the left side of the body. If you have a right brain stroke, you're going to have left side paralysis, pretty straightforward. Hearing is split 60-40. What that means is the left ear will feed 60% of the information to the right temporal lobe, but 40% to the same side. 60 to the opposite, 40 to the same. But if you listen to the music in the left ear, it'll just bias and push the right side a little bit more than the left, because it does cross over more than it goes straight up. So hearing music on one side, if you have a right temporal lobe issue, listening music to the left can help with that. Again, you will need to work with a qualified functional neurologist to identify if you have a laterality to it, meaning do you have a right temporal lobe dysfunction or left temporal lobe dysfunction before you start doing that. Okay? Other than that, you might want to do things bilaterally on both sides. Okay? Another thing that can help with temporal lobe is listen to music with a repetitive beat without much pitch or intonation. Okay? Why is that? Because this is more stimulating for the left temporal lobe. Okay? Now, if you're listening to music that has more intonation change, like nature sounds, that's going to be more for right brain. Because left brain processes linear information, right brain processes non-linear information, like nature sound, which is very, not like a steady beat, right? Where left brain in music will be like techno or rap music, where it just got the beat, and that's pretty much the straight beats. Other things you can do is learning a new language. It's great for both the right and the left temporal lobe, because the brain has to hear it, it has to process that sound, and you have to remember the words. So learning a new language is great for the temporal lobe. Actually, learning a new language is great for all different parts of the brain, because it requires several lobes of the brain to process that language information. And also doing memory games. So those concentration games are great, where you have these cards, you have to flip one over, and you have to remember what that looks like, and you have to find the other card in the deck. Memory games are great for temporal lobe as well. So whatever you are not doing well at cognitively, you rehab it by doing those things that you're not good at. Now, obviously, for some people, they may have some kind of brain weakness because they lack fuel, because the blood sugar is so jacked up, you're anemic, you're just inflamed. You may have to address those metabolic issues first before you can full-on rehab the brain and do all these activity, because you can certainly do too much and cause more harm. You can exceed the brain cell's metabolic capacity to handle that particular exercise. So this is where working, again, with a qualified functional neurologist can really help you to get this thing niched down so you get faster result. And that's what we do with our client. So hopefully this helps you. Please, if you feel like this is helpful for you, like more content like this, please like this video, comment in the comment section if you have any questions. I answer every comment and every question personally myself. I don't hand it off to someone. And also, please share this video with others who you feel like may have some memory issues, sleep issues, so they can understand that there's something's going on that they can maybe do something natural to address, or they can give us a call and get more help. So again, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week at the Ask Dr.